In just 60 days, I raised over $3 million using one sentence, and later we sold the company for $42 million. In this video, I'm going to give you the template so you can make your one sentence elevator pitch that you can use whatever you're selling. But I warn you, this is a 7-step process, and if you skip just one of those steps, it will be the reason that it doesn't work for you. And as usual, if you want free access to the templates that I'm going to show you for creating your own elevator pitch and the instructions that come with it, please click on the link below. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Raj Jha. I founded 5 companies, took a company public, and have done over $400 million in sales. But the thing that let me close a ton of business and sell my company is when I figured out how to create an elevator pitch that got people interested right away. Instead of having people check out when you start talking, it's like, oh, whatever, what's this guy talking about? If you use this proven pitch template, it can make a prospect sit up, take notice. And I developed it using my concept of scientific entrepreneurship, which I share with over 1,000 entrepreneurs in my CEO Workbench community. And today, I'm going to give you a part of that system for free. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about elevator pitches. Now, an elevator pitch is a really powerful one-sentence asset. I call it an asset. That's a very important word because it's a thing that is of benefit to your company that actually has value, even though it seems like one sentence. How can it have value? I'm going to show you today. Now, it can help you get more business, get more referrals. It can help you raise money. I've used it to raise a bunch of money, and I'll talk to you about that in a bit. You can help sell the business. So there's so many uses for this. If you don't have one, today is all about making sure that you have one that works, it's effective, you can test it, and you're using best practices to make sure you've got this one sentence that's in your pocket and is going to be so valuable for you. So there's a whole bunch of steps to this, and don't bail out before the end of this, because if you don't have all these steps locked in place, the whole thing could crumble. So you really need to understand every single piece and make sure that you stick till the end, because we're going to go over how to guarantee it works, which is really important. And as always, the handout, there's a worksheet and it's at the bottom. So it's underneath this video as well. So make sure that you download that. So you know what an elevator pitch is. It's a one sentence little thing that you can say that instantly conveys to someone else what you do, when to think of you, and all of that. So how do you guarantee success in this? If you've ever met someone who is droning on and you're just bored and you can't stand it, you just want to get out of the conversation, or they've just said something and you just kind of don't understand it. And in either way, you just want to end the conversation. And that is the problem with most elevator pitches. And someone asks, so what do you do? And then all of a sudden you're forced to say something, but you're just getting it out there and it doesn't really matter. You don't think that it's going to have a big impact, and it probably won't because you haven't thought about that. So if you say what you do, think, well, what do you do? Oh, well, I run a software company. Oh, I run a marketing agency. That doesn't really tell them enough, and they might be bored. It's usually not enough to get them to ask a follow-up question. So this is your one opportunity to really make a great first impression, right? So I call this the one sentence to rule them all. You're crisping up your message to tell them when to think about you and when you're relevant. And if you do this in the right way, it's going to get them asking more questions and very involved in what you do. And you're going to carve out a big part of their mind that's going to be dedicated to thinking of you and when to refer you business, when to send you their own business. And this is going to be a great asset. The other piece of this is first impressions. Clarity breeds competence. So one of the things that you might not realize is when you are very clear about what you are talking about, people will think that you are competent at what you do, because most people are really unclear. So they are not 100% on point with what do they do? When do I need to think about you? So being clear in this way and having this pitch that you've practiced in your pocket, you're going to learn how to do that today, is going to really help there. And lastly, as you know, I'm always talking about scientific entrepreneurship. How do you do this in a scientific way? In other words, how do you make sure that you are getting the biggest bang for your effort here? And I've put together all of these best practices, and at the end, we're going to talk about how you can make sure that this is going to be the most effective thing for you. There's actually a process for that. So this isn't guesswork. This is actually going to be a process that you can put in place that you're going to go through, and then we're going to figure out how to make it optimal for you. First, we're going to talk about making a viral pitch. So how do you make it viral? The first thing is a change in mindset. When someone asks, what do you do? You typically will answer with a very functional description of what you do from your perspective. But the mindset shift here is, in order to make something viral, it can't be about you. it has to be about them. All right. So it has to be jargon free for anyone who is relevant. Now, obviously, some people are in a technical area. And if you are in a very technical area and the only person who's relevant to you would have to understand some baseline technical thing, then maybe you can use jargon that's relevant. But for most people who are kind of operating in the real world and companies that an individual consumer would understand, you want to be as jargon free as possible. Because again, it's going back to clarity. It shows competence. If you can be clear without using jargony words, they're going to think that you're better at what you do. Because once you can teach something in a very simple way, people presume that you are really an intelligent person. So I use the kids' soccer benchmark. If your kids are at a soccer game and you're talking with another parent, some rando is there, would they understand so that they could tell someone else what you do? Right? So you're conveying it from your brain into their brain, and they need to be able to explain it to someone else. And if they can't, because they can't quite grasp onto what you do and how you do it and who it's for, it's the easiest thing is to forget. So if you're saying it to someone else and they could turn to the next person that's standing there watching the soccer game, it's like, oh, meet Raj, he does this, then you've won. All right. It is past the shareability test, and that it's focused on them and not on you. The next is imprint. This is how do you imprint it on their brain so that they actually remember it? We're going to use stories for that. I'll give you a formula for that later on in this document. And let's talk briefly about what's good and what's bad. Like I've given some examples there, but if someone asks you what you do and your elevator pitch is, I run a software company, that's not a good pitch. And you're going to see why it's not a good pitch versus a good one, which we're going to construct here together. The bad one is bad because it just ends the conversation. Now, maybe, just maybe, if they're kind of interested in software, they'll ask a follow-up question. Oh, what kind is it? Or, what does the software do? But that's only if someone knows enough about software to do that. But there are plenty of people who don't know a lot about software, but they could refer a great client to you, an awesome customer, but because they don't care about software, they're caring about a solution, right? But the only way they put two and two together in their mind is if they knew what you did, and you just ended the conversation with, I run a software company, or I'm a lawyer, or I do Facebook ads, whatever it is. You just ended the conversation if that person doesn't have any context, instead of taking it up a level and saying what you do, which is what we're going to do here today. So the next thing is clarity and simplicity. It has to be easy to understand, easy to repeat. That's the kids' soccer benchmark. And then we're going to be using some memory techniques, rhyming, alliteration, to make it more memorable. So that's repeating letters in the thing. And if you can use those ways of making things more memorable, then you're going to get a lot further with your elevator pitch. And then word of mouth, it helps others spread the word about your business, right? I get referred business a lot of times. I actually sold a business over 4 years ago, and I literally still get referrals. I can't do anything with it. I sold the business. I don't run it. I don't have any financial interest in it, but I'm still getting referrals 4 years later because my elevator pitch was so clear and what I did was so clear that people still think of me that way. Now, of course, I have to now break that with my new elevator pitch, but that's an entirely other market, and they're still sending me business that I can refer on because they remember me for that. And then we're going to be testing how shareable things are. So again, stick with it for that. Okay, next is the perfect hook. So the elevator pitch needs a perfect hook. That's the beginning of it so that you can really hook people in and continue the conversation. So it's a very simple thing. And again, you don't need to kind of stop and write this down. All of this stuff is in the download worksheet that's underneath this video. So the perfect hook consists of this. First, a one-sentence description of what your business does. So in that worksheet, you're going to write down a one-sentence description of what your business does. Now, that's not the elevator pitch. That's the description of what you do, and you're going to use that to create this pitch. Who you do it for. Then you would write down a one-sentence description of your target audience. We're going to munge all these sentences into one elevator pitch, don't worry. The pain they avoid by working with you. Now, this is really important because people pay attention when they know that you're alleviating pain that they have. And so if you write a one-sentence description of the problem that you solve for your customers, your clients, then you are going to have a pain that they avoid, that they're going to associate that with you in a good way. That, oh, this is the person that offers me that pain relief. A dream outcome. This is, during the exercise, you go through a one-sentence description of the ideal results that you get for your clients. And then this is a really interesting one. If you haven't heard about it, it's called a unique mechanism. Okay. So a unique mechanism is the how of you helping them get that dream result. All right. And the best ones spark a little bit of curiosity, and there's something magical about them. A unique mechanism is a name for a method that your product or service uses to solve a problem. So one thing is to say, I do this, right? And then the next level is I get this result. But if you get this result with a way that seems special or interesting, you're going to actually attract a lot more people. Because it's one thing to say, I get this result. Okay, great. And I get this result for this kind of person. And they're going to say, okay, well, that's fine. But is that really super special? It's more special if there's just a little bit of magic around that, about the how you do it. Because then they're mentally engaged in picturing you. And also it's separating you from everyone else because you've got a special how. Other people haven't told them about a how. They just said, oh, I do this, or I get this result. But you get this result using this mechanism, all right? And it really connects very deeply with them, because the mechanism, if you describe it in the right way, is going to address a frustration they have, because maybe they've tried to solve the problem that you solve. So again, I'm going to go back to, let's say you have a software company. It does something for a certain kind of business. You're selling to small businesses and it helps them with their marketing. You can say, I sell software that helps small businesses do their marketing. But if you add in a unique mechanism that speaks to all their frustrations and like takes that off the table, so you're saying, oh, and it gets it done with less than an hour a week of the owner's time. Oh, well, okay. And then you name that mechanism, which we're going to do in a moment. So by doing that, that how adds another extra special flavor to this that overcomes an objection or gets them more interested. So what is this thing? I'm going to give you some examples of a unique mechanism here, but it's simple. It's easy to understand. It explains what it is. It's self-explanatory. In a couple of words, it conveys something very special. And then it also needs to evoke something that is very differentiated. All right. So your unique mechanism needs to show that you're different from everyone else. All right. So you fill it. Here's the fill in the blank format: the thing or result and a technical word. So let's say I have a marketing agency, because I used to have one that I sold, and I wanted to build a campaigns for people. And I want to show them I have a unique mechanism that, and as a part of my process, will get them better results. So I might say that my unique mechanism is the rapid campaign builder. All right. So what is that saying? Well, I'm building campaigns, but quickly, because they always think, oh man, the last time I worked with my last agency, it was painful. They took forever. I didn't know what was happening. And at the end of it, I just got some ads, but not a campaign. No, I've got the rapid campaign builder. So, I help small businesses market, and we get to market with the rapid campaign builder. So that's the unique mechanism. So to help you, I know this is a little bit hard to grasp sometimes when you first get it, but I've got some examples here of all kinds of words you can use for that. That'll all be in the worksheet. You can also use some buzzwords sometimes. You can decide whether or not that helps. Sometimes if you put AI in there nowadays, it's a good buzzword, but that might not be a good buzzword tomorrow. Sustainable, some people like those kinds of words. So that is another thing that you can do to get people interested and say, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm interested in that. The ideal outcome is that the next question after your elevator pitch and your unique mechanism is like, what is that? Or how do you do that? Again, I'm going to give you examples about how I do it and how other people do it. And if you get that answer, that how do you do that? Or like, what is that? That means that they've understood it enough to want to know more, instead of just shutting down and saying, okay, yeah, whatever, or just changing the conversation to something else. So what's the template for a good hook? So up above, we've written down, and you've written down what your business does, your target audience, and now you're going to assemble that. Again, the worksheet will take you through all of this into a simple sentence like this. We help this kind of client avoid this bad thing and get an outcome they want using a unique mechanism. All right. So let's look at one that I'm using on you right now. I help entrepreneurs avoid being stuck in stagnant businesses, show them what to do when, adding 7 figures in revenue using scientific entrepreneurship. All right. So let's go over why this one works. All right. Who do I help? Well, I help entrepreneurs. So I've done that. What pain do I help them avoid? Being stuck in a stagnant business, because either they have a business and it's stuck, they're not going anywhere, they've hit a plateau, or they don't know what to do next. So I'm helping them if they're stuck, and showing them what to do when, if they don't know what to do. If they're startup entrepreneurs, very often they're just trying to figure things out and they don't know what to do next. So that's what I do. That's the pain that I help them alleviate. Pleasure, adding 7 figures in revenue. I think that's a pretty clear outcome that we're getting using scientific entrepreneurship, which is my unique mechanism. And why is it a unique mechanism? Well, it's got certainly authority in it. It's scientific. I use scientific processes to actually help businesses. So the same kind of stuff that has built all of modern civilization, I'm applying to business. And how do we expand businesses? In scientific entrepreneurship, it shows exactly what I'm doing. And it's going to attract the kind of person who would be an ideal client for me, because they're attracted to things that are predictable, that have a process for getting a result, and is going to repel, because this is also important, you're repelling people who are bad fit customers. So the people who are looking for get rich quick, who I don't really have much of any interest in working with, they're going to be like, oh yeah, science sounds hard. Like, this is not get rich quick. I'll just go on and find something else on YouTube. All right. So that's what it is for me, but it might be totally different for someone else. Someone else might want the get rich quick guys. I don't know. So their unique mechanism will certainly be different. And they might be, helping broke people start their first business using something else. There's a bunch of these, but that's the template. Kind of client, avoid bad thing, get outcome they want, and using a unique mechanism. So this is the template for your elevator pitch. All right. So now you can do yours. All right. Doing the same thing. And again, the downloads, I'm going to show you here. There is a worksheet with all kinds of stuff. So you can go through all of that at another time. And let's go back here. Okay. So now let's talk about storytelling. Storytelling is a pretty important part of this. It can make a huge, huge difference because it engages the audience's minds in a way that nothing else does. We are programmed to think in stories. We think, how many stories do you know? Whether it's a movie, whether it's a book, whether it is an audio presentation, people have gone to, plays for thousands of years. We think in stories. We remember in stories. So if you can evoke emotion through story and tie that to your elevator pitch, you're going to be so much more effective at imprinting on the mind of a potential prospect or referral partner or anybody. Okay. It also helps you relate to people because it does sounds less braggy when you do it in the story, in the context of a story, particularly in the context of a story where you're helping somebody. So here we've got the structure of a good story. It needs to be concise. You talk about who your ideal client is in the story. So you make them the hero of the story, not you. You make the ideal client the hero. You describe the issue and the impact that it's having on them. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking someone through a mini case study in a story format. And I'll give you an example and a template. And then they get the dream outcome. So you've taken someone through this whole journey of a person who had a problem, and then they use your unique mechanism, and then you help them get their dream outcome. All right. And that will help illustrate in someone's mind how you are relevant, when you are relevant, who to think of for you. So here's the example format. We had this kind of client who had this pain point, and because of our unique mechanism, and they have an attribute, they get a dream outcome in a time frame. So I'm just going to read you one of mine. I had an entrepreneur who was working 80 plus hours a week doing sales calls that didn't close, and he wasn't seeing his kids. His revenue had stalled at about $2 million. And his margins are actually starting to go down. So it's kind of all the red lights are flashing here. I deployed scientific entrepreneurship, which let us test 70 new marketing offers in 1 month for just a few $100s. We discovered one that converted 32% better. And then next year, he hit $3.7 million in new revenue and cut his hours down to 35 a week. So here we have an ideal client that I'm describing, someone who's kind of stuck, right? If you recall my elevator pitch above, it's the person who's stuck. They don't know what to do, and things aren't going right. And he wasn't seeing his kids. Right? It's the truth, but it's also an emotional appeal to the kind of person who would be a great fit for what we do. His revenue had stalled, margins were going down. I deployed my unique mechanism, scientific entrepreneurship, and I tested 72 new marketing offers in 1 month for a few $100s. So when I did this many years ago, it allowed him to very quickly find something that worked. And then the next thing was he was able to scale that using the process of, once we discover it using the scientific process, then we've got the scaling process behind that. And he was able to hit a lot more revenue and stop grinding it out with sales because he was working 80 hours a week, just selling, and really converting at a poor rate. But this turned it into an entirely different dynamic for him. So as you can see, that story tells a lot about the kind of person that I would work with. And so you might remember it in the future. And so would you do this for you? How would you have a story like this that tells the story of someone you've helped and the way in which you did it? And as you can see, we're just putting these building blocks in place and assembling them in a really concise way. All right, so examples. Let's talk about some examples of great elevator pitches. I won't go into all of these because there are a lot of them. You'll have it in the download. Dog walker, we help busy pet owners avoid the rushed, stressful dog walks and ensure their dogs are healthy and happy using the tail wagger program. And so somebody like, well, what is the tail wagger program, right? They clearly understand what they are. Or let's take a business-to-business example, B2B. IT consulting firm. We deliver IT solutions for mid-sized companies to avoid system downtime and enhance operational efficiency using streamlined systems. Again, people are like, okay, well, I know when to think of you. Mid-sized company, avoid system downtime. I mean, companies lose a ton of money from downtime using streamlined systems. Okay, well, they'd ask, well, what is that? Right, so now they know when to think of you. So you can look at these. You don't need to, pause and take screenshots because it's all in the download. And okay, how do you use the pitch to make money? Here are the main ways to do it. Number one, networking. We've always talked about this in the context of, hey, so you're at the kid's soccer game, so you're at the party and someone asks you what you do. That's the obvious one, all right? Less obvious ones, raising money. So I have used this to raise money. At one of my prior companies, we raised millions of dollars in just 60 days because we could be really concise about exactly what we had to offer and why. Next is marketing. So this is making you unique in the market. Now, this is not all of marketing. Obviously, there's a ton of detail and nuance to marketing, but going through this exercise of ultra simplifying what you do has an incredible amount of value because you are going to be able to crisply convey to someone what you're all about. So, and also that unique mechanism piece is going to be very helpful for that as well. And doing this is going to ripple through all of your future marketing. And as we're going to talk about how to guarantee it works in a second, that testing protocol, that scientific process of testing is going to let you test your messaging faster than rolling out entire new marketing campaigns and just hoping it works. Okay. So the marketing, it makes you unique in the market. Sales, it makes sure that sales reps are talking about your business and your offer in the same way. Because instead of having a lot of reps, they come in there and they're given a whole bunch of information. And when that is not put together in a really crisp way, each one is going to start talking about the business in a slightly different way. And what it really comes down to is they're going to go back to the how. They're going to go back to the what you do, which is the least powerful way to describe your business to a prospect versus talking about the outcome and the unique mechanism to get them the outcome. That's the highest value way because it differentiates you. So by giving this to the sales reps or when you are doing sales, you make sure that there's consistency and you make sure that the core message is getting out a lot more powerfully. Your exit, selling the business, getting a buyer interested quickly. I have done this multiple times. And when you, again, can articulate really quickly to somebody who might be interested in buying your business, what it's all about, then you really have a shortcut to starting a discussion. Now, I'll be honest, sometimes there are a couple different elevator pitches and one is really more for a customer and one is for a buyer of the business. But the fact is the building blocks are the same. So you might tweak it slightly, but having gone through this exercise, you're going to be say, aha, if I just tweak this little thing for the benefit that is for a buyer versus the benefit that is for a customer, you're going to have the formula for that. So this is a core way of doing it. And again, we're going to get to how it works. So another neat thing that you could do with an elevator pitch is a testimonial case study template. So what are testimonials for? And people tend to think of testimonials as being for, oh, it's just showing that people think I'm awesome or that my product is great. I think of testimonials in a very different way. I think of testimonials as a way of overcoming an objection before it even happens on a sales call. So if a testimonial speaks to a way that you work that gets rid of an objection that someone might have in the future, that is the best way to think of a testimonial. So if you think about all of the objections you've ever had in selling and you map each one to a case study, then you're going to have a surefire way of giving these little tiny case studies and dripping them out before a sales conversation that's going to get your sales to be that much more powerful because you've overcome the objection in advance. I thought it would be, so marketing agency example, I thought getting my campaigns up and running would take 6 months because that's what it took with my last agency. They were inefficient, etc. That's what's in the prospect's mind as you are trying to close them because you as a marketing agency are paying for the sins of every marketer before you. But instead, if you have a case study in this little abbreviated form which is, I'm so glad I worked with them. It took me only 25 days and we were up and running. And that's one of your testimonials. You've overcome an objection that would have prevented them getting on a sales call or that they would have brought up on a sales call. All right. So just use that storytelling framework that we talked about. The easiest way to do it is you write it out for them using the format that you want and then get them to sign off on it. All right. And when you're deploying these case studies using this testimonial format, this elevator pitch format, don't just use the client's name, but be specific. Talk about their industry, their situation. So I have some just like very obvious examples here. So, and the reason why you want to have the industry in there is because that's going to let the prospect see themselves in it a lot better. If it's just Bob Farmer is giving a testimony, they go, well, I don't know who Bob Farmer is. Why do I care about Bob Farmer? Oh, Bob Farmer, CEO. Okay, he's a CEO. I might give him a little bit more like credence in my mind. But if it's Bob Farmer, CEO of a SaaS company, and I'm a SaaS company, I'm like, okay, now I'm really listening because this guy knows my pain points. So just like a testimonial has to speak to an objection, it also should speak to a specific who. Okay, so that is a very powerful way of doing that. Now let's talk about the cool stuff. We are here in my special land of scientific entrepreneurship. So all this stuff we talked about today is going to give you way better results than any elevator pitch that you've come up with before, or if you're just going to make up some kind of one-liner. All right. But you can even get better. And this is the iterative testing methodology that I use with all of my scientific entrepreneurship work. And that is always be testing. All right. And I'll give you an abbreviated version here, a very simplified version. You can go and look at my other stuff for a much more detailed explanation of exactly how the process works at the high level. But here's the easy, quick and dirty way of getting a bunch of value from this. So you're going to write down the pitch. You're going to go through this exercise and download the worksheet and go through it. It won't take you long. This entire exercise might take you 15 minutes to try the first time. You're going to write it down and you're going to practice it. So you just practice that pitch a few times, just get used to it so that it flows okay when you're saying it for the first time. And then you're going to try it a few times and you're going to write down what worked and who are you talking to? Why do you think it worked? Why do you think it didn't work? And then you are going to do that a few times and then you're going to revisit it. All right. And then you're going to tweak it a little bit based on what you're finding out. Say, it's not resonating when I say this. And then you try something different. And then you're going to iterate on this. And as you do this, you're going to notice that, okay, well, I'm picking on software companies today. So if you're a SaaS company and I talked to a potential customer and I used this, and this was the reaction. And then I talked to another customer, this was the reaction. Then I talked to a potential investor and this was the reaction. Okay, you're going to start to learn about what each one of these constituents thinks about this pitch and whether or not it needs to be tuned based on the audience. So that in some social setting, you might understand that this person is a complete layperson. So you have to have one version of it. And then this person is a potential customer, slightly different version. And then here is the potential investor, slightly different version. But you get to the truth of what really works and how to do this best by taking note of it and iterating on it. So again, this is the ultra simplified way of doing this. I have a much more extensive way of doing it, which actually gets into numbers. And so you can have confidence in what works and what doesn't work. We actually can test things using thousands of people for just a few $100 versus doing it this manual way. That's the kind of more extensive way of doing it. But if you just do this, you're going to get so much better than if you are doing nothing else. So for what you have learned in just the last 30 minutes, you are going to get so much better at these pitches and you're going to be so much more powerful, able to raise money, able to pitch and close more business, able to sell your business if you really actually do this. So make sure that you go ahead and download the worksheet. Inside it, there's actually words you can use. There's a table in there which will help you kind of pick the right words for your elevator pitch and your unique mechanism. So make sure to take advantage of that. So now you see how to use an elevator pitch, which is one sentence, which will be a huge asset for yourself and your company to generate a ton of money in sales in order to get your business sold, in order to raise money for your business, an incredibly powerful tool. Another powerful tool is understanding scientific entrepreneurship and what that can do for your business to actually give you a process to understand what's going to work before blowing a bunch of time and a bunch of money. And to learn more about that, go look at this video up here.